Alright, welcome back to another episode of StichMethod on the road, currently in Silverton, Colorado. Can't get enough of this town, absolutely awesome. Really quickly, we're going to talk about how to Yellow Ledbetter up any song. And before we get there, we have to talk about what Yellow Ledbetter is, or that intro is. And I wanted to have a candid, honest conversation with you, which is the first time I heard Yellow Ledbetter so many years ago. I was like, what is Pearl Jam doing ripping off Hendrix? And, you know, that was my first initial response. It grew into a good song, but nonetheless, when you approach a song with this style, it's going to sound like Hendrix. So you got to determine if this is what you want to do, right? And there might be a part of a song, there might be a part that you really want, my dog, that you really want to, do this. I'm going to show you, why it works and what it can teach you in terms of guitar and how music and scales and chords work together. All right, so let's get down to it. All right, so the intro to this song is based off of an E chord, a B chord, and an A. And this is a 1-5-4 in E, all right? And so the idea is you're going to learn how, chords and pentatonics are related. I have a couple cool lessons in this playlist right here that will show you everything. If you have any questions, well, let me show you. The first chord is an E. The way this came about is that they found an E chord up here, right here on the 9th fret in this G shape. Now this is an E chord, but more importantly, inside of this E chord is an E major pentatonic. Alright? And if you want to play like Hendrix, you find the G shaped chord, and you bar your finger on the A, D, G section, and you keep it barred, and you're going to play these pentatonic hammer-ons. Sound familiar already? So you have this and you can see the bar is here and you're hammering onto these auxiliary notes on the bridge side of the pentatonic. Now, what you want to learn from this, of course, is that when you play a G-shaped chord, you can play the G-shaped pentatonic, you can bar, and you can kind of you have to practice hammering on with one note while playing two notes. And there's that Hendrix sound, but more importantly, this is the one chord. This is the key. So we find that if you're writing a song, the one chord usually, if you find the G-shaped chord anywhere, you can kind of do those trills in between there and keep the one chord solid and part of the root of the song. You'll see what I mean in a second. After it goes to the E, it goes to the B. Now, they probably play with their thumb. I have short, stubby thumbs. I don't play like that. So you hear a line like this. Now I have to do that jump right there, but let me show you what's happening here. And you probably know how to play this, and you can see the distinction of what's happening, but there's some cool underlying stuff happening. Alright, so he goes to a B chord. This is the 5 chord. He sees the E-shaped chord, and in, or with that E-shaped chord comes the E-shaped pentatonic. And inside that pentatonic, of course, is this little tiny piece of this B chord. They're right there. A major pentatonic and a major chord are pretty much one and the same. The pentatonic has 2 extra notes, and we're about to address that right now. One of those extra notes is right here. This is the root note, this is the 2. So you can see on the 5 chord that he puts in something to that extent, right? Which is, this is this is the major second. So we have a sus2 chord, or we have an add 9. However you want to think about it, because really, I don't want to get too heavy, the 3 is still in there. We're not taking it out. And so we can say it's an add 9. But nonetheless, this feeling is on the 5 chord, and it's the same thing for the 4 chord, which is the A. Same exact shape, E shape down to E shape, same little piece of the chord, little pentatonic note here. Okay, now I think there's a little suspension. I don't think there is, never mind, I lied to you. But you have this back to the E. Then you got it, or a little. So let's just say that I was in Pearl Jam, and I was making this song up, but it wasn't set yet, and I'm kind of fooling around with the pentatonics. I'm going to fool around with pentatonics. You're going to hear the similarities. It's like the Yellow Ledbetter that didn't make it, but if we use this idea, you can hear how strong the ideas come together when you're playing a chord, and it's pentatonic, You have a chord and its pentatonic, like holding a chord piece down and playing a little bit of its pentatonic, finding another chord, holding a piece of the chord down and playing some pentatonic notes. That's the sound of like Yellow Ledbetter, and Hendrix. So let's just say I had that chord progression, like they wrote a chord progression that would sound like this: E, I have it as a backing track, B, A, and back to E. And I said, okay, keep playing that. And they're playing it, and I'm sitting, I'm trying to come up with stuff. Okay, so all I did right there was just kind of play the pentatonics, hold pieces down. You might have noticed I did something on the A chord that I stole from Bob Weir, from my Bob Weir video, where if you look at these two notes, like, okay, 4th fret G, 5th fret B, here's that pentatonic. Sorry. Right, you can do this little suspension. And Hendrix does that too, and I kind of threw it in there. And so, to sound like Yellow Ledbetter-ish or Hendrix, you want to hold a piece of the chord down and like fluff around with the pentatonics. So how do you do this to your songs? You just do it to your songs, and if you want to practice this stuff with me, you can join me on Patreon, but let me show you like what I mean. Let's say you have a song that goes from A to G to D. It's like my favorite chord progression in the world. I don't know why, it just is. Now, you got to look at this and say, well, what is this? Well, this is an A, G, D. Well, this is a 5-4-1 in D. 5-4-1. So the 5 chord gets the kind of suspension stuff. To the 4, same thing. And then the D is going to get, that's the 1 chord, so I got to find the G shape of the 1 chord. The 1 chord gets that G shape, then. So you have. Alright, you can hear that you can kind of like make it sound like Yellow Ledbetter / Hendrix. You can make it sound like your own, but this is what's happening. It's a chord, it's pentatonic, you're holding a piece of the chord down and playing a little bit of the pentatonic around it. Very simple guitar lesson, but if you have a song that has, that you don't want to turn it into a Hendrix song, but it has a little bridge, it has something that can use a little flair, try this out. I hope you enjoyed this very quick episode of StichMethod. Again, if you want to practice doing this stuff with me and seeing the relationship between chords and pentatonics, join me on Patreon. Check out the videos I pointed to in this video in case you're like, what is that? Because it really will help you. I'll stop talking. Thank you for being here. Talk soon. Bye-bye.